Hi, it's Anthony Labruno, back for another lesson. Today we're going to talk about the Nashville Numbers System. If you're a classically trained musician, you probably know this as Roman numeral analysis, where we take numbers and assign them to each note in a scale, and more specifically, what chord that those notes are the root of. All right, so this system is really great. It'll help you if you're a piano player, guitarist, a bassist, even a horn player. It'll help you to be able to transpose between keys without too much difficulty because you'll understand the function that each chord has within that key. All right, so pay attention. Here we go.
All right, so like I just explained in the introduction to this lesson, Nashville Numbers is just a system that assigns numbers to each scale degree or each note in the scale, and more specifically the chord that goes along with that note in the scale. So if we think of, let's go to C for now. I'm going to do another key later just to prove how easy it is to switch from key to key with the Nashville Number System. We'll start in C. So we have C being 1, D being 2, E being 3, F being 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and then C would be 8, but since it's the same as 1, we just call it 1 again. No need to differentiate between 8 and 1, especially in Nashville numbers. All right, so we have, again, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so each of those scale degrees gets that assigned number. The first note of the scale gets 1, the second note of the scale gets 2, and obviously the third note of the scale gets 3, so on and so forth. So now the chords that are based off of those notes, take each of those scale degrees, each of those notes, and now let's apply it as the root of a chord. So C, we're in the key of C, we have C as the root of what chord? The C major chord. Okay? So now D is not going to be the root of a D major chord because that would have an F sharp in it. That's not the key we're in the key of C. So this can also be referred to as the Diatonic Triads. Diatonic means referring to the scale, referring to a major scale, right? And the triads means the chords. So this is basically the chords that show up. Since we're in C, it's all white keys, right? So we can basically just take this 1, 3, 5 shape and go, right, move it from left to right, with the same spacing, and play any triad we want. So basically this is what we're talking about. We're talking about this being, C being the root of this triad as being called the 1 chord. If we move up to the 2 chord, it looks like this. It's a D minor, right? If we move up to the 3 chord, it's an E minor. If we move up to the 4 chord, it's an F major. The 5 chord is G major. The 6 chord is A minor. The 7 chord would be what's called a B diminished chord, but that doesn't really get used in popular music. So I'm going to talk about something in just a second regarding the 3 and the 7. So again, let's go back just to make sure we understand. We're using the 1, or the first note of the scale in the key of C. And Nashville numbers would call this the 1 chord. Boom. 1 chord is always major, and it's the name of the key. So if we're in the key of A, it's the A chord. If we're in the key of F sharp, it's the F sharp chord. We're in the key of C, so 1 is the C chord. 2 is always minor in any key, because as we learned in our major scale lesson, the same formula, that whole, half, whole, half, 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half, applies no matter what note you start on. We just happen to be starting on C. So the same, it's all relative, right? So if the 1 chord is major in the key of C, it's going to be major in the key of A. It's going to be major in the key of D. It's going to be major in the key of E flat. Whatever it is, it's going to be major. The 1 chord is always major. That's the beauty of Nashville numbers, is that it applies, because it's all relative, all the keys are relative to the same formula, the same format. Nashville numbers just calls them by one name, just the 1 chord. So we don't have to refer to it as C major or as whatever, because we're referring to its role in the key, which is the role of the first note of the scale. Hoping this is making sense. If not, please comment below. I'd love to chat with you about it and explain it further. Alright, so this is the 1 chord in the key of C, C major. The 2 chord is always minor In the key of C, it happens to be D minor, but let's not call it that. We're going to call it the 2 chord, the 2 minor. It would be a number 2 with a little M next to it, right? So we said the 3 chord was an E minor, or the 3 minor, right? Again, we're basing it off of the 3rd note of the scale. That's the root. So I hope this doesn't get confusing, but basically the Nashville Numbers System is also kind of based off of being able to hear things as far as the bass motion and the bass movement. That's probably the easiest way to listen to a song and figure out the chord progression is by listening on the bottom and hearing how the bass moves. So a lot of times the 3 minor chord is not very common. It's not very common in popular music. So what is more common when the 3 note is in the bass is for it to be a 1 chord up top. So for instance, in this case, C over E. So the 1 chord with the 3 in the bass. Remember we talked about slash chords last lesson? We talked about D over F sharp or C over E. That's what we're talking about here. It's 1 or C, the C chord, over an E note. Basically, C first inversion if you're just looking at the right hand. Right, so it's a 1 chord with 3 in the bass. So again, we have 1, we have 2 minor, we have either 3 minor or 1 over 3 is more common. All right, then we have 4, 5, 6 minor, and then 7, just like we said before, yes, technically the 7 is a diminished chord, but again, we don't really use that. Just like 1 over 3, this is going to be 5 over 7. So it's your G chord, your 5 chord, over the 7 note. So if you're hearing a song and you're trying to figure it out, and you hear a 7 in the bass, probably more than 9 times out of 10, it's a 5 over 7 chord, not a 7 diminished chord, okay? So that's 5 over 7. So again, we have 1, 2 minor, 3 minor, or 1 over 3. More likely 1 over 3 if you're just hearing that 3 note in the bass. 4, 5, 6 minor, and then 5 over 7. All right. If you're new to this, you can feel free to ignore this next thing that I'm going to talk about, but sometimes you'll have chords that break these rules, so that there's also something called the flat 7. So if we're in C, obviously the 7 is B, so flatting that 7 would be B flat. So having actually a B flat chord, this is more popular in like early 90s Christian contemporary music or even gospel music or R&B or earlier pop music. These chords that are actually out of the key, outside of the key, were more common. It's not as common anymore, but it still happens from time to time. So if you just see it flat 7, that's what that's referring to, and sometimes even flat 6. Right? And I guess if you see anything else like flat 2 or whatever, you can figure out what that means. All right, so if you're new to this, now you can start listening again. You could have ignored that last part. We'll keep with the basics of 1 through 7. All right, so now let's just move it to a different key just to prove how easy this is. Right, so we have A. All right, let's go to the key of A. We have A. So A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. If you know your major scale formula, a whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, 2 holes and then a half, 3 holes and then a half, then all you have to do is do that to figure out, oh, those are the notes in the key of A. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is 1. So we're doing the same thing that we just did with C, but now in A. So we have 1 chord, the 2 minor. So again, I'm using 1, 3, 5 here, and I'm just using notes that are in the key. So I can't play C natural because that's not in the key. It's C sharp when we're talking about the key of A. I can't use F natural here. I have to use F sharp because it's the key of A, not the key of C. Right? So I'm just using I'm making this my root note and then figuring out the rest of the chord based on the notes that are in the key. So if that's 1, then my next notes are 3 and 5. If this is 2, my next notes are 4 and 6, so on and so forth throughout the key. So A, or we're gonna speak in numbers now because we're doing natural numbers. We have 1, 2 minor, 3 minor, or 1 over 3, 4, 5, 6 minor. Remember 7, we're not going to do that diminished 7, we're going to do 5 over 7. So it's an E chord over G sharp. So 5, the 5 chord over the 7. All right, and that's natural numbers. So it may be confusing for the moment, but kind of watch this video a few times, and if you start thinking of your scales in numbers, in the scale degrees, then you'll start to see how easy it is to do the same exact thing with the chords. And this is an awesome way to look at music. I do this even with my worship team at church. I do a lot of the chord sheets that I write out. If I can't find them on a chord database or anything like that, and I have to make my own chord sheet, a lot of times I do it even for my own songwriting and songs that I have written or co-written or whatever. It's so much easier to write out the chord sheets actually, and this thing is becoming more and more popular, to write out a chord sheet using the natural numbers instead of the chords. Because then if you want to play that song in 12 different keys, you have to print out 12 different pieces of paper. But if you use the natural number system, you only have to print out one piece of paper, because if you're going to play it in the key of C and the song starts out with the 1 chord and you want to print it out in the key of C, you have to have it say C there. But what if another singer next week, another person comes in, they want to do that song in E? Now you got to change the whole chord sheet, and that first chord of the song has to be an E chord. But if you do natural numbers, it's just the 1 chord. And all you have to do is, with your band or with your team, you just have to communicate and know which key you're in. All right, we're starting this in C. Okay, cool. So the 1 chord is C. The 2 chord is D minor. The 5 chord is G. The 6 chord is A minor. Whatever. Oh, now we want to move to E. Or let's move to A, since we went over that in the lesson. Now we're going to change the song to the key of A. We're doing the same song, now just in a different key. All right, it's A. Cool. A is the 1 chord. B minor is the 2 chord. E is the 5 chord. So on the chord sheet, there'll be literally lyrics, and there'll be the number 1. That means the 1 chord. 2M, 2 little m, that'd be a 2 minor chord. A 4, a 5, 5/7, 5 would be the 5 over 7. A 1/3 would be the 1 over 3. The 1 chord over the 3 note in the bass. Or it'd be 3M, if it's a 3 minor chord. All right? Well, again, if you're having any trouble understanding this, comment below, or you can go on my website and fill out a contact form, and I'd be happy to get back to you and explain it further. But I hope this helps you. Nashville Numbers. Thanks for watching.